Welcome to week 2 of International Business and Economic Law. Today is Patriots Day here in Boston. And as you can see, I'm not running in the Boston Marathon. Maybe you find that surprising, if you don't. I wanted to talk about a couple of things just to warm you up for this week's discussion. One is a couple of things going on in the news, and the other is just an approach to legal analysis. So in the news, the Ukraine crisis continues. The United States has imposed some sanctions on Russia, including sanctions on a Russian bank that has close ties with Vladimir Putin. And the Russians have said in response, we may make a claim at the World Trade Organization that you're improperly limiting our bank's access to your market. And so that's an interesting question. Can Russia do that? And the answer is no, it can't, most likely. And the reason for that is that the General Agreement on Trade and Services, which is the basis for Russia's purported claim, has an exception for actions that are considered by the acting state to be necessary for its essential security interests taken in time of an emergency in international relations. And what's important there is the words it considers. It may be that objectively the United States could qualify, but the it considers makes it a subjective standard. So if the United States considers that this is a threat to its national security in connection with a crisis in international relations, then it can act. And so it's unlikely that Russia, I think, will bring the claim recognizing this, and it's equal that Russia could win a claim like this. Interestingly, there's another security exception that came up last week, and that is the United States has blocked the visa for the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations. And that blockage would otherwise be inconsistent with the United States obligations under the United Nations headquarters agreement. But that too, at least, and there's some argument as to exactly what made it into that agreement, but it's likely that that too has a security exception, and that security exception might give the United States the ability to say our security requires us to keep this fellow out. So security exceptions are interesting in these international economic and other treaties, and in many cases they have this self-judging aspect, this subjective aspect that makes them easier to use for the state that wants to use them. The second thing I wanted to talk about is legal analysis generally. We're starting to talk about national treatment, discrimination in international law, and as you'll see once you review the materials and hear the lecture, the WTO law in this area, principally GATT Article 3 pertaining to goods, is written in a fairly general way. It says if there are like products, you can't provide less favorable treatment. And I think what you'll find is that there could be a good deal of space for, for discretion in the application of that. But the first thing that we need to do as legal analysts is to identify the terms that have to be satisfied, the components of this obligation that need to be satisfied for there to be a violation or for the action to be consistent with WTO law. Once we identify those components, we examine each one separately to decide whether they're satisfied or not. And what I think, as I suggested, and as I suggested in the lecture, it's still fairly general. And the question is, could you come up with something more specific? In fact, I could analyze what we have today as saying, we kind of know discrimination when we see it, and we're going to put it into these terms, but we can't really deal with it much more specifically. So the question for you is, can you deal with it more specifically? Can you think of a better way, a more defined way to do this that won't leave out some bad things or catch some good things and prevent states from doing some things that are good? Okay, look forward to seeing you on the board.